It's talked about in the boardrooms of the most successful companies, how bottom line business results are linked to employee engagement driven by inspiring leadership. So let's talk leadership. I'm Bill Hogg, and in this series I talk in depth with senior leaders about high-performing leadership competencies and the tools and techniques they are using to drive business growth in today's economy. With me today is Don Walker, Chief Executive Officer of Magna International. But before we begin our discussion, let's get an overview of the company. Magna International is truly a global success story. Frank Stronach started a small tool and die company in Toronto in 1957, which subsequently grew into the production of automotive components. Today, Magna is a $28 billion global automotive supplier that designs, develops, and manufactures components and systems for the world's leading automakers. Magna is the most diversified automotive supplier in the world. Magna employs over 115,000 people in 263 manufacturing operations and 84 product development and engineering centers in 26 countries. Magna's management philosophy is known as fair enterprise, based on a business, charter of rights, and a governing corporate constitution. You can find out more about Magna at www.magna.com. Don Walker joined Magna in 1987 after spending his early career at General Motors. He was appointed president and CEO of Magna in 1994 and was named co-CEO and member of the board of Magna International in 2005. Don is also a recipient of the Top 40 Under 40 Award and was named Global Leader for Tomorrow in 1998 by the World Economic Forum. Don, welcome to Let's Talk Leadership.
Thank you.
So obviously, Magna has a very unique position in the world marketplace, but also within the Canadian marketplace. And we read a lot of press about the slightly different approach that Magna takes towards the relationship that it has with the folks that work with us. So why don't we start there and talk a little bit about the fair business enterprise perspective that you folks have taken.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here today, especially talking about people and employee involvement, because everybody will talk about how important people are in the company. I think everybody believes it. But if you look at the real successful companies, it's really where they've come up with some techniques that will engage everybody's minds and make it hopefully as pleasurable a place to work as possible. And Frank, as you mentioned, Frank Stronach started this as a very young tool and die maker, and throughout the 50-year history of Magna, he's put together some very interesting programs that will track how we're treating people and get them engaged. So we have a lot of different programs that really do make people feel like they're part of the company.
Well, and at times I almost get the sense, if you kind of keep an eye on the paper, that it's a little bit controversial because it's a little bit out of the norm, where there seems to be a higher degree of empowerment towards people within the organization, and there's profit sharing with the folks within the organization. So talk to me a little bit about how that came about. Like what are you familiar with sort of the history of how that all began?
Yeah, I've been there for a long time now, and I have lived it, and I'm a huge believer in the way Magna operates internally. And if I would look at the people that work at Magna and sort of put them in two different camps when you're talking about how we relate with them. One group would be the managers, so assistant general managers of our plants, vice presidents, presidents, and the corporate senior people. And all management get paid a percentage of the profits of whatever they're running. Mm-hmm. So we are a very entrepreneurial company. We're very decentralized, and that's got pros and cons to it. But everybody's extremely motivated to run a successful business and maximize the profitability for the long term, which is good for shareholders. But we also have to make sure we are treating our employees well and engaging them and making sure we're being competitive and looking after our customers. So if you look at the management group, they are expected to be very knowledgeable in all areas, including how to treat people, as well as being good in business and grow the top line. If you look at our employees, and that would include everybody else, we have a lot of skilled people in Magna in all different areas, but the majority of them work in our manufacturing plants. So we have a lot of different programs that will engage people, and it's kind of summarized in our employee charter.
So why don't you talk to us about that? That's probably something that's got a little bit of press from time to time, and it's kind of unique to have something that really is employee focused, because I mean, you're absolutely right. A lot of people talk about employee engagement, but the truth is to a lot of people it's lip service. I mean, it's like they read the book and said, oh, okay, we've got to have employee engagement, but you guys really live it. So tell us a little bit about how that charter works.
Yeah, I think what has been controversial in the press is probably more the corporate constitution, and the corporate constitution primarily predetermines what we do with our profits. So we'll reinvest in the business. We have profit sharing for all of our employees. We have profit sharing for senior management. We have social funding as well as funding R&D. So the controversial part is when we'll have some of the senior managers making high amounts of money because we perform well, they get high bonuses. But part of the corporate constitution says we'll take 10% of our pre-tax profits, and that'll be shared amongst all the employees in the company. So I don't think that's controversial. A lot of people are very interested in what we do, and there's always details you have to manage within that. But the employee charter, which is our other core document, which has been around for many years, talks about a number of different things to make sure we're treating people fairly, we communicate, that we're paying people well. But we'll do surveys to make sure the average of the wages and benefits we pay people are at least average to the competition. And then on top of that, people can be making extra money with profit sharing. Mm-hmm. And then we have safe and healthful workplace and a number of other things. But it really spells out on a piece of paper what we stand for, how we want to work, and we'll track how we're doing in those various areas.
Well, and that really speaks to one of the key things that I think drives employee engagement, if you want to use that term, is that transparency, is kind of knowing what's going on in the organization. And, you know, we've read in all the management books that people don't leave their company, they leave their boss, and that, you know, communication is one of the key issues that are important to employees, and you folks seem to have done I mean, you've taken it to the next level. I mean, you've literally laid it out and said, here's exactly how it's going to be. How do you start to solicit feedback from the folks within the organization and get their input on that kind of thing?
It's a great question, because it's one thing to have a document, it's another thing to say, how do you actually manage it? Because we expect a lot from what we call them general managers. So mm-hmm. A plant, an operating division, we put a management team in place. Because we're entrepreneurial, because we're decentralized, they're really running their own company. So they have to be involved in designing your product, laying out manufacturing lines, quoting business, the quality of the product, the delivery of the product, what they're purchasing, hiring people, so all aspects of the business. And it's almost impossible to find a person who is great in all of the areas of that. Mm-hmm. You can have a great technical person, you can have a great financial person, you can have a great salesperson, you can have a good leader, a good mentor of people. So we're always looking at the management team in a plant and try and make sure that it's balanced. And one of the things we will particularly look at, and what we're talking about today, is how are the people who are in that manufacturing division treated? And we have a number of tools which have been introduced over a period of time to ensure that we understand how people are being treated. We have an open door policy. We try and encourage everybody, if there's a problem, go talk to your supervisor. If you don't feel comfortable with that, go talk to the next level. Go talk to the general manager. So we've been introduced what's called a fairness committee in all of our plants. 5 people will volunteer for the positions. We'll have 5 people in the fairness committee, 3 people from the shop floor, 2 in management. Anybody can talk to anybody in fairness committee in confidence, and they will look at the situation. They will try and come up with a recommendation to make sure we're making good decisions. It all doesn't rest on just the manager's shoulders. We have quite often we'll go to secret ballot votes, which is something that's important to everybody. We'll tell them what's the issue, and we'll go with the majority of the people. We have employee advocates, which was very controversial when it was introduced a number of years ago. But it's basically somebody who's elected by the people in the shop floor to be the representative. So it's not a union, but management can't let that person go. Anybody has a problem, they can go talk to them. They're involved in trying to make the business healthier, talking to the general manager. We have, if all else fails in a division and all of these things don't work, we have a hotline. Mm-hmm. People can call it in many different languages, tell us what their complaint is, and it'll be investigated by somebody outside the division. And then we do annual employee opinion surveys, which in my mind is the barometer of everything. How's it working?
Right.
Because we'll have a series of questions. Everybody in the plant will fill out a questionnaire in secrecy. They can put their comments down, and we'll look at that at corporate office and say, are things working well or not? Things are never perfect, but I believe in many of our divisions we have a fantastic working relationship, and where there's things are going off track for whatever reason, at least we can become aware of it and try and step in and make sure we deal with it.
Well, it's interesting, you know, I mean, every business that I've ever been exposed to is messy. I mean, it's people's lives, it's people's, you know, futures, and different people have different perspectives on things. And the point you made earlier was about how everybody can't be great at everything. But the fact that there's so much input from different people in the organization, it may be messy, but you've got so many different, you know, opportunities to provide that input. It sounds like the folks in the organization are genuinely getting the opportunity to do it. Do you find that any of them work better or worse than other? I'm just wondering, you know, the Fair Practice Committee. I don't know if I got the name right, but I would guess it wouldn't get a lot of use because there's so many other things. That seems to be almost, you know, a last resort. I mean, how do you find the different things working and which ones stand out?
Business is very complicated, and one of the things that a company will get by engaging people's minds and having them enjoy doing what they're doing and really feel like they're part of the company, because they are. A company is not a legal entity, it's a bunch of people working together. So each of our divisions is really, it's a collection of people trying to win orders from customers and make money and reinvest and develop new product. So the best job security anybody can have is for the people in an area to work together, in a plant, in a group. So when you look at the fairness committees, they're not there only to listen to there's a problem here or somebody's treating me bad. Quite often somebody will say, you know what, we got a lot of rejected parts. I've talked to my supervisor, I think there's something wrong with the machine or the tool or the material's not coming there. A lot of the suggestions we get are productivity improvement suggestions, are continuous improvement. That's one of the questions we asked on our employee opinion survey. So typically when you introduce democracy in the workplace, if you want to call it that, the first thing people will do by nature is they complain about everything. I don't like this, I don't like this. And you need to respond to that, because if you ask questions and you don't respond, people will say, well, they're not really interested. But I think very quickly, because most people really want to do a good job, and they're going to work to make money, and they're going to work not to get hassled, they want to enjoy what they're doing, most people will start putting their head together and say, we can do better here. And one of the things that Magna prides itself on, because we're in a very difficult industry, and if you look in Canada, we're with the Canadian dollar, there's a lot of competition from low cost jurisdictions. We need to be the best at manufacturing. We need to have no waste. We need to have everybody working together. And we've been able, since the last downturn, to add thousands of jobs back in manufacturing in Canada. And I think one of the reasons is because everybody's working together as a team. We're not perfect, we're far from perfect, but at least we're trying to get better all the time, and we're trying to have systems out there that if we're going off track, a red flag is raised. So whether it's the Fairness Committee or the Employee Advocate or the Open Door Policy, what I always look for in a plant is, are people smiling? Are they happy? Are they engaged? Do they feel like people are listening to them? Is there opportunity for advancement if they want it? Are they being treated fairly? So you can put everything in place, but you need to have people buy into it. And you need to have people, what we call sort of the Magna culture. Management has to live by the Magna culture. And it doesn't always happen. People, as you said, they're under stress. There's different things going on, but that's what we're always striving for.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back after the break, and I want to talk to you about how you get people aligned on that vision that you're talking about.
Sure.
Thanks.